let's get the Facebook groups in here real quick. 1 and 2. All right, give it a second to breathe. And welcome in. It is Monday morning, October 24th. And Eric, here we are again, plunged in the depths of the core of the world of suck. Denver Broncos fall to the New York Jets at home, 16-9, and fall to 2-5 for the season. God, 2-5 for the season. And here we are again. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it's worse. But we're here to talk and hopefully cope you guys through and give you guys a chance to voice your frustration, as I'm sure everybody's feeling it as well. Eric, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's early for me. It is that much more butt crack early for you out there in Alaska. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. And just the fact that I'm willing to get up this early to talk about how bad this team is shocking to myself. But here I am, and I'm ready to say what there can be said.
Yeah, it's rough, but it's also just football. I keep telling myself that there's other things going on. It's supposed to be a distraction, and it's a frustrating distraction right now. But in the overall echelon of time, this team is eventually probably going to figure it out, right? Maybe it's a 3-year window because of Russell Wilson. Who knows? But we do. This is me. I'll just call myself out on this. This is me coping really hard right now. We have the richest owner in sports. They're going to toss money at it, I hope, until they at least get a better product out there, because right now the product freaking stinks. Let's say hello to some people in the chat. Colin Wood saying, well, here we are again. Somehow the minute Brandon McManus missed that extra point, that would have tied the game. I knew we were goners. This team is just snake bit. Yeah, everything that can go wrong does. Luckily, I guess let's some positives in the game. The Broncos had two or three injuries that I'm aware that occurred when I was watching it. Both those guys, I believe, came back out on the field. Jerry Jeudy and Kwan Williams. So as far as I know, typically, you get on the injury report on Wednesday and it's like, oh my God, that guy got hurt and now he's out for the freaking, next 3 months. But I don't think any significant injuries happen for the Broncos side of things.
Mike Boone has a bad injury. We're unsure about Cameron Fleming.
Yes. God. Yes. Oh my God. Okay.
So
yeah, Mike Boone. Yeah. And he was looking pretty good early on there, giving the Broncos some explosive runs, running hard, and suffers an injury. The Broncos make a move today or last night, bringing in Marlon Mack from the 49ers practice squad. Marlon Mack, former 5th round pick, very end of the 4th round or very beginning of the 5th round, I think, from University of Southern Florida with the Colts for a number of years. And now in Denver, I think a good fit for the outside zone offense as a runner, not the best protector, but yep, Colin Wood, we feel you. We got Jeremy Shawn in the house saying good morning, Nick and Eric. Who would have imagined we'd be here? Man, not even the biggest detractors, I think. It is wild to be watching this team be this bad, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe the team plane can fly through the Bermuda Triangle on the way to London and the season will reverse itself. Yeah, we talk about, tragedy happening on this. This team is tragic right now, but there can be things that are worse than this. So let's hope. I appreciate the joke there. Kevin Gray coming in. Morning, Broncos country. Nick, Scott, Eric's here today. But fans in 68, the worst offense in the league, want to hear what? It's the worst offense I think it's ever seen. Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, it's horrible. Eric, what is going on? Like, what the heck is going on? I feel like Jim in The Office, what is going on? The classic GIF or meme there. Everything is falling apart. The wide receivers aren't living up to expectations. Your best running back is hurt, and now your top 3 running backs are hurt. Your other running back is having Instagram tirades and pouting on the sideline when he's not fumbling the football. The offensive line is absolutely horrible, and the quarterback looks like a bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league. And then you play a backup who is an undrafted free agent for an obvious reason, and this team on offense stinks. They stink out loud.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the coaching and it works its way down. I mean, I saw a lot of everybody saying, "Oh, this was definitely it's all on Hackett," and absolving Russell Wilson of blame. But to me, and not trying to crap on Wilson, he didn't play. Hopefully, he gets better and all that. But when your backup quarterback has a comparable game to your franchise quarterback you traded for, that right there screams to me not only is it an issue of the coaching, it is an issue of that franchise quarterback. We
Yeah.
saw the issues clear as day with Hackett. I mean, Brett Rypien shouldn't be running the same offense Russell Wilson is. Russell Wilson shouldn't be running this offense either. And you're not adjusting anything for it. Early on in the game, when they're on the script, you're playing to your quarterback strengths a little bit more. Than you get off of that. You get to being this pocket passer, these deeper, longer routes that take time to develop, and things fall apart. Getting the ball out quickly, moving to the pocket, that worked with Brett Rypien earlier in the game a little bit. It's worked with Russell Wilson, but that's still not what Hackett is doing. And large reason for that is that's not what Russell Wilson wants to do. But it didn't matter because Rypien came in and we were still doing it and still not playing to the quarterback strength. So that is what is definitely on Hackett.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to the Broncos, and with Brett Rypien, I thought it was a little bit better. I mean, we saw. I'm going to take, I guess, a small victory lap here because I need something to feel better about this season. But the mismatch pairing of Jerry Jeudy to Russell Wilson, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Jerry Judy's going to be amazing with Russell Wilson." I'm like, the quick game's not really Russell Wilson's strength. He's accurate deep, but we see that from Jeudy sometimes. But you got to be able to rise up and kind of make some contested catches down the field for a lot of those. Not a lot of times dusting players. It's not really Judy's game as far as vertically doing that. And we see Rypien come in and he, 7 catches for 96 yards or something along those lines. Jeudy has a great game, and for his career standards at least, and Rypien probably a little better fit there. So interesting to see that. I also do want to talk a little bit of positives. I thought the pass protection in this game held up a little bit better than they had been so far this season. Now we're talking about, like from bottom 3 to bottom 10 in this game. And the Jets, I mean, Quinnen Williams had an amazing game. He was all over the field. I mean, Lloyd Cushenberry is probably going to be checking under his bed in his closet for Quinnen Williams for the rest of the week because he just beat him so bad. But I thought the pass protection was solid. And also I think we kind of were pretty critical of George Payton's previous draft class, especially day 2, mainly the Nick Bonito pick, which hasn't really, I mean, it's too early to write that one in ink even, but Greg Dulcich, way too early to talk about him as well, but a really good game, a really good 2 games so far. He looks legit. He looks about 100 times better than Alberto Cuevanam did. Already the Broncos' best tight end. So trying to think a little positive thoughts. Do you have any other positive thoughts here before we keep going in the chat here? On the offensive side of the ball.
On the offensive side of the ball,
maybe not. I took pass protection was okay. Greg Dulcich.
When it's all said and done with the offensive line, they did look a little bit better. I do wonder how much getting the ball out a little bit quicker helped. Not having the tendency to hold on to it as long as we have with Russell Wilson. But Quinn Miners looks legit. Like he had very few losses in this game. And the few times that he was matched up against Quinnen Williams, he absolutely shut him down. And John Franklin Myers was consistently pretty shut down. Like he had a really good game. Couple misses, but I mean, he's showing his development, which is great to see.
So you have 1 out of 5 right now that you can build on, maybe 2 out of 5, but with the way this season is going and how you're going to have to make moves next offseason with a less than stellar capital in the war chest, maybe you have to consider some moves with Garrett Bowles there in his contract, given how flexible it is.
Yeah, but my thing is you already have to fix 3 spots on the offensive line. Yeah. And right now they still do have limited draft capital.
Yeah.
And their money is, they still have guys that they need to re-sign, Draymond Jones being among them. And it's just, how can you, for this year anyways, how can you cut your left tackle and make the offensive line even weaker and then potentially spend even more to go and try and upgrade it? It's, for me, it's a ride with him for 2023, and then after next season, look to replace it, because hopefully by then you've figured out something with right tackle, center, and left guard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see. It's just that contract, how flexible it is. I could see them approaching him with the Graham Glasgow special, where they increase the guaranteed by a lot, saying like, you're here no matter what. If we cut you up, we're going to take a big hit, so it's not happening. But maybe lower that cap hit by $3 million, which is another, veteran contract on this roster that could make a difference. So we got Bama X coming in here saying, well, good morning, Broncos country, and happy Monday. Congrats on your win on Saturday, Bama X. I don't think the Hawkeyes played on Saturday, so I'm not going to talk about that. And don't worry, ladies and gents, 2024 will be our year Yeah, maybe it'll be 2026, but who knows? But this is a rough one so far, no doubt. Travis Hudson coming in saying, "We stink." Yes, we do. Ashton coming in saying, "I didn't even watch the game until I could see the condensed game. Best choice of my weekend." Broncos country is going to start making that choice. Talked with a friend of mine. I'll call him a friend because we talk good often. He came out here and we hung out in Seattle for a bit. Andrew Mason talking about just how absolutely lifeless the stadium was and no energy considering it was a one-score game pretty much the entire game. Broncos country right now, they don't. I mean, it's hard to care. This is probably the most we've had worse seasons in my opinion and worse teams than this over the last 5-6 seasons. This is by far the most disheartening because there's not really much hope outside of this. The structure right now. You paid Russell Wilson that big contract. You don't have the top picks this year. You lost that flexibility that you had built up going for it this year, which I'm not going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. Yay, George Payton going for it. Finally, like you built up this and you did something. You got to hit it though when that comes down. And unfortunately, so far it's looking like not a hit. Too early to write the book completely on Russell Wilson's career in Denver. It's been bad so far, but it's the Russell Wilson trade, the extension, and then of course this coaching staff, which we'll get into here, I'm sure soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to add to that. I mean, it's so disheartening to watch it. I mean, we're coming to a situation where next week I try to watch every game live. I'm not next week. I'm not getting up at 5:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning to go watch the Broncos and the Jaguars play in London. Like this team, as even though I get paid to cover them, like I'm not. Like I'll go and I'll watch the condensed game on it, and it's just it's hard because I mean, for me anyways, I want to watch them. I want to watch them live, but I want to see them do well. And when they're doing poorly, and then there's no self-awareness from them after the game in their press conferences, from the coaching staff and the players, where it's all we want to do better. I have liked Justin Simmons and Mike Purcell's comments the last couple weeks of at some point we got to show it. Like we can keep talking about it, but until we do it, it's just talk. Like I've liked those kind of comments they've had, but it's only from them. Everybody else has been, oh, it'll get better. Like,
yeah.
Well, when? Like the fans are paying for a product that's supposed to be a good product that was hyped up as a good product for so long, and this is what we're getting: the most inept offense that we've seen in my lifetime from the Broncos.
Yeah. It's bad. Not a well-coached team, not a very talented team on the offensive side of the ball. A very injured team as well. We got to be real with it. But yeah, that's pretty much everybody, every single unit and position on the offensive line and the wide receivers and whatever has failed to live up to expectations. I can't even think of one player. I can think of a couple players, actually. Cam Fleming, way overplaying expectations so far. Good for him. Other than that, though, I mean, is there a single player on the offensive side of the ball that is playing above what you were just baseline expected this season?
So are we taking out production?
Yeah, like actual ability, not like because you can be you think Hamler's done better than what you expected this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's getting open. I think it's not that he's only doing better than what I expected. He's being better earlier than I expected. I still thought that about now is when we start getting Hamler back, but he is definitely doing better. And then Jeremy actually comes in with Dulcich, and Dulcich is another one. Even though it's been 2 games, he's definitely exceeded expectations already.
Yeah, in those 2 games. I agree. Yeah. Want a little broader sample size. Cam Fleming, though. Hope he's healthy because, God, we just can't take any more injuries. Addison coming in here, $4.99. Thank you so much, Addison, getting us started here at the Super, saying, hate to say it, but we need to trade anyone we can to get decent value to recoup for what we lost in the Wilson trade. This is an all-time low. Yeah, Eric, is the fire sale started?
I don't think it's started, and when I see fire sale, I think anybody and everybody's available. I don't think that's really the case. I think there are 3 or 4 players that definitely are. One of them's been inactive for 2 games in Albert Okwuegbunam, Bradley Chubb, who I don't think they should move. I think would be a bad idea to move on from him, but he seems to be a popular one. Simply because they made their moves for life without Bradley Chubb. Bringing in Randy Gregory, moving Baron Browning, drafting Nick Benito. Those are moves to help them move on from Chubb. And he's probably the guy they can get the most for. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, yeah, he had his big game with Brett Rypien. He's had a couple big moments with Russell Wilson, but it's been luck and broken coverages where we're seeing Jeudy shine with Russell Wilson. And then when it's actually based off the route running, there's always seems to be a miscommunication. And then KJ Hamler, I mean, as I was talking about, he's getting open, he's just not getting utilized. So may as well try and find something that you can get for him. Those are the guys that I think that are on the move. I mean, and if you're talking fire sale, then I think you are looking at moving Draymond Jones and trying to get something for him. You're trying to move on from a couple other young guys that are on cheaper deals and just getting anything you can for anyone you can, basically.
The thing that stinks about that is that it probably pushes the clock back again like another 2 years, because you're talking then about draft picks. Do they even hit? You have to reassess the roster then. 2023 then becomes another evaluation transition season. It makes it rough. And like right now, do you even trust any of the guys, especially on the offensive side of the ball? Forget the scheming and the game coaching, like development of a lot of these players as well, putting them in positions to succeed. Square pegging round hole this offense so far this season. So we'll see, but it's been rough. I don't know about the full on fire sale, but trades are probably coming. And probably Broncos. I think Broncos probably lose to the Jags next week. Just sit Wilson again, give him the bye week, and then hopefully just use the last half of the season as an evaluation. But Broncos did make the playoffs in 2011 after starting 2-5, but I don't think any Tebow Magic's walking through that door in an absolutely laughable AFC West, which was 2011. Paul coming in saying, good morning, y'all. Good to see you. Kathy one saying, good morning, friends. Hi, Nick and Eric. Wait, now what? I don't know. Sundays maybe are going to be a little bit more enjoyable doing something else. Sunny days coming in here. Yep, it's rough. But what do you think? We got Boozy Simmons coming in here saying, what do you guys think about Hackett's play calling? You see some guys open from time to time. My biggest issue right now, and I'm an analytics guy. I do like, a lot of the statistics and whatnot. I don't give a hoot what this one says, though. The Broncos run blocking is terrible. Like ESPN and PFF have them rated high. There must be some flaw in the system for how they grade those actual situations, because they are freaking horrible. They can't run the football. They haven't been able to run the football efficiently all season, and it's hurting the team. And the play calling, I mean, when the offensive line, when it's constantly 3rd and 7, although they were better in this game, I thought there was a lot of 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s, which was refreshing to see. God, oh my God, we're not 3rd and 8 constantly. I think a lot of that also has to do with the penalties being cleaned up in this game. I think Denver only had 4, but play calling has been the play calling itself, or the scheme. Okay, the scheme has been the best. The play calling's been second worst. Then it's been the game situation. So I give the play calling probably a D overall, and then it's the game situations for this offensive coaching staff, Hackett, that has probably been the worst.
See, for me, play calling in of itself hasn't been terrible. Like, I'm not going to say it's been a great. I'd probably give it a C+, B-, because we're seeing them attack the weaknesses of the defense pretty consistently with the play calling. It's just the sequencing of it and the setting up plays. I mean, we saw with the Jets 62-yard touchdown that they set that run up with multiple plays leading up to that, not just that series, but the first couple of drives that they had. And we don't see that from the Broncos. So that's where play calling takes a big hit. And then the stubbornness to try and get a screen game going that's just not working whatsoever and has hardly worked. I mean, outside of the Seahawks game where they had some success, it's been nothing. So it's time to review that and essentially take it out, which I kind of thought they would do after that mini bye week they had, where they had that deep dive into the offense to see what's working and what's not and take out what's not. Well, screens weren't working, and yet they're still sticking with it. So I don't trust what the coaching staff has to say about that. So it's just, it's not pretty, and everything. When you have the inefficiencies that you have on the offense with your run blocking being so poor, it's hard to really properly judge how good or bad the play calling is.
I'm a Jimmy's and Joe's guys, not an X's and O guys. And the X's and O's are failing right now, but the Broncos are lacking talent on the offensive side of the ball, and pretty much everybody is not living up to expectations on that side. So it's rough. And another thing that's a bummer is a great game by the defense once again squandered. I mean, this is a very talented defense. Ejiro Evero has these guys. I mean, they're talented. Then you have the quarterback. Patrick Surtain's great. They can do a lot of things with him. Safeties have been poor. Justin Simmons is probably still playing with injury. I mean, let's be honest. This was a bad game from him overall, and the linebacking core is lacking with Josie Jewell once again hurt. But overall, I think it's a pretty talented defense. They they've been missing the game-breaking turnover or points off turnover. Maybe, hey, you could argue maybe they had it with DJ Jones having this looked like a scoop and score. I don't know. Maybe I'm blind. But Gene's territorial. So yeah, this is definitely a fumble. Nope, it's not on the field because of course not this season for Denver. Dr. Van Nostrand coming in here saying next up getting embarrassed internationally. I don't know, man. The Jags have made a pretty good habit of getting embarrassed, but so have the Jets before this. So we'll see. I mean, I'm honestly of the opinion just sit Wilson again, give him through the bye week at this point. It's 2-5. It's who cares what pick we're sending the Seahawks. I see Seahawks fans in here. Thanks for the top 5 pick. You're welcome. I guess all I can say for myself is at least it's in the NFC. But we'll see if it's a top 5 pick when it ends. Ashton saying not even mad, just dumb. Yeah, apathy is starting to become pretty obvious in Denver Broncos country, and I don't blame you guys. PJ Allen saying backup quarterbacks don't come around like they used to. Yeah, they don't. Holy Diver saying let the trades begin. Ryan Slavic in the house saying good morning, Nick and Eric in Broncos country. No words really at this point. Yeah, Eric and I started the show. I'm like, I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just a crap show. What is our next move in your guys' opinion? Start trading players, fire Hackett. I would be shocked if Hackett is fired before the season, but at this way, the way it's trending right now at this point, I'd be shocked if he's here next year as well. Now we got over half a season to go, but just barely. But just the pooping your pants look that we constantly see on the sideline of decision makings. I mean, what was it, 58-yard, 56-yard field goal attempt yesterday when your defense is playing good, throwing the ball from shotgun on 3rd and 1, throwing Hail Marys on 3rd and 3. I mean, like, I don't understand what the plan is, what the vision, the thought process. It just seems like they're just pulling plays and decisions, especially with gameplay decisions, out of a hat. But who knows? Probably we'll starting to see some trades happen here pretty soon, but I think Hackett gets the season.
Yeah, I would. There was a George Payton comment that was made some point last year that touched on his thoughts on firing a head coach midseason, and it was essentially basically saying that it's not something he wants to do or would look to do or anything like that. You give him the season and move on there, and it's a thought shared by many. I mean, unless you're creating issues for the team, added issues for the team, like we saw in Jacksonville last year, like it's typically not a good idea to fire a coach midseason unless there is a guy on the staff that you legit want to give a legit look at as being a head coach. And I don't see anybody on the staff that I'd be wanting to do that. I mean, Zach Azani, I've seen some people talk about him. I mean, the receivers are underperforming. He's got a good track record with that. But I mean, has he ever called plays in the NFL? Has he ever been an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Going from a receiver coach up to that's a little bit iffy for me. Evero, I mean, I wouldn't want to add more to his plate. I mean, he's a first-time defensive coordinator, even though he's a passing game coordinator last year for the Rams. Like, I wouldn't want to add more there. So there's just nothing I would do. But one thing I would take play calling away. I don't care who you give it to at this point. I'd just take play calling away from Hackett. See if that manages to help him out with some of these other issues he has.
Got to be Clint Kubiak. Called plays for Minnesota. It wasn't great last year, but at least, they were a middling offense. So that's the one that comes to for me, but we'll see. Andrew Lamp coming in here. Morning, men. Nick, I'm sorry. Both your teams are offensive on the offensive side of the ball. I think literally the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Denver Broncos are both the worst offenses in their respective leagues. So it's an absolute laughing stock out here. All you can do is laugh. Sun still came up though. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. Wicked Royalty. Welcome to Broncos Anonymous. I love that. We got the Keeks coming in saying, man, it's rough, but Rypien played better than Russell, waiting patiently. I mean, I think Russell at his highest, granted the sample size is a lot better, was better than Rypien, but Rypien worked the quick game a little better, hence Jerry Jeudy I thought Rypien also did better with line checks, which is shocking. I mean, Russell Wilson wants to be this Peyton Manning quarterback, but if you can't even get the pre-snap line checks with obvious guys coming down the A-gap, I mean, you're not God blessed Peyton Manning. You're not even, I don't know, Chad Pennington, if you can't call out those obvious pressures on 3rd down that they keep sending over and over again like they did in the Chargers game. But it's rough. They got to figure something out here. I keep coming back to the best way to run a Russell Wilson offense, and I'm doubling down on this, is you got to be able to have a very good run game, where then Russell Wilson plays complement to that run game, and you're having heavier boxes. The play action is working then. Teams are actually respecting that rather than pinning their ears back on the play action looks. But that's not been the Broncos so far this season. And I don't know if that's any team, any defense going forward with how they're playing play actions and whatnot and playing lighter boxes. Like, okay, run us to death. Broncos might have to be a team that builds that way over the next few seasons with Russell Wilson in-house for at least the next 3.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it in Seattle, is they've gone to this thing where they've tried to let Russell Wilson be Peyton Manning, and it's failed. And then they go back to what Pete Carroll wants to do. And I know in the offseason I crapped on how stubborn Carroll is as a head coach, but I mean, in hindsight now, I was being an idiot because what Carroll was doing was working. I mean, he wasn't caving to Russell Wilson consistently, letting him continue to hurt the team being a quarterback he isn't, and would sit there and move the pocket for him, go back to these things Wilson doesn't want to do. And we saw Wilson bounce back pretty consistently with that. I mean, the let Russ cook thing needs to end here in Denver. We need a head coach that's going to step up and say that it's not working. You can't sit here and keep the whole team being held back by your quarterback trying to do something that he doesn't want to do. And it doesn't mean that just because you change it, it'll get significantly better. But we have seen the offense be more effective and more efficient when they do the things that we know Wilson can do. And so it's just we need a coach that can do that and not just be buddy-buddy with the quarterback, letting him do whatever.
Yeah, it's just crazy how many different, you move the pieces of crap on the board around and it's still pieces of crap. It doesn't matter how you serve it. Benjamin Flores, morning fella, sad times indeed. Deshaun Berube coming in saying, why are we this bad? Quarterback's poor, offensive line is poor, injuries, and the Broncos defense right now, and partially because the offense is so bad, but they're also not getting the key takeaways so far this season. We had chances early on with strip sacks. Of course, they bounce right into the chest, the bellies of other teams, which sometimes it be like that. Yeah, there's so many things to go around. The biggest thing is that there's just not one single issue that it's easy to fix. This is beyond the leaky dam syndrome. It's the full on, Titanic taking on water on multiple levels for this team right now. And without that pick to kind of look forward to, and also tying yourself to Russell Wilson, you are going down with the ship. George Paton probably going down with the ship. Luckily, you still have 2 or 3 more rolls of the dice, probably, if you're Paton, with trying to figure it out around Russell Wilson, including the coaching staff and the offensive style and personnel. But it's bad right now. Why are we this bad? Point at everything, pretty much across the board on offense.
Yeah, I mean, and on the George Paton topic, I'm in the belief that if things don't start to turn around, if we don't start to see progress from Hackett and this coaching staff, and George Paton decides to give him another year, then George Paton is tied with Hackett. Yep. Like you can't. He doesn't get a shot at another head coach. He doesn't get another shot. If Hackett is done after the 2023 season, then Paton needs to go as well. Barring, seeing some improvement over the course of the season from the coaching staff and how this team is doing. Like if it's the same stuff as that is, they're tied at the hip, and he is tied at the hip with Russell Wilson as well. Like Paton won't be able to survive this because this was the move that he made. This was a move that he was playing for in the 2021 NFL draft. Like he was playing to get that veteran quarterback, and if it fails, that is on him. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I've seen a lot of people defend it because of how Justin Fields is doing. It doesn't matter what Justin Fields is doing. We can't speak about anything Justin Fields would do if he was the pick at 9 over Patrick Surtain. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. It was a bad process. And one of the things that even though Surtain is looking good, the whole franchise quarterback is harder to find than a franchise quarterback thing with comment. It's become a meme for a reason. And so you do have Paton tied at the hip with Russell Wilson and potentially tied at the hip with Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, it's rough out here, but we'll see what happens with this coaching staff going forward. We're talking about the coaching staff. Coach Chris in here, $20 saying, I don't know about you, but Rypien looked better in the offense than Russ. I'm going to peel back this onion first. I think the offense looked better is because the penalties totally cut down by a lot. Rypien was in far better situations on third down than Russell Wilson has been this entire year. I bet you the Broncos' yards to go on third down in this game was probably about 3 or 4, where on the season, I'm guessing the average before this was about 9 because of how many penalties they had in those situations. So the difference wasn't a lot, but I don't know if Rypien looked better. But the quick game was better. You just didn't get the explosives as much, at least. In the end, it's the scheme and coaching. I'd be surprised if it makes it past the bye week. Can't go with him. Again, it's talking about moving pieces of turds on a plate around. If you're firing Hackett right now and elevating who knows who, is that guy really going to solve anything? You're probably going to have to clean house anyway in the offseason. And also, it's probably going to be a new offensive scheme again or some iteration of a new offensive scheme. I think probably the safest thing to do is to write it out this season, unfortunately, unless you have somebody in-house that you feel deserves a shot that you want to evaluate. I can't speak to that. There's nobody really obvious right now that would make sense to me. I know that everybody's excited about Ejiro Evero's long-term prospects. Heck, if somebody wanted to come in and make that argument for me, I'd probably listen at this point because of how bad things have been. But yeah, right now it's tough. I don't think firing Hackett and getting started. I see people like, why are you waiting to do it? Because any move you make is probably going to be, again, redone in the offseason. So you're just going to create more confusion out there, a worse product, and you're not playing for a draft picks, unfortunately, because you don't have your draft picks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, as I said a little bit ago, I mean, I wouldn't expect Hackett fired during the season, simply because not only is it his first year, it is George Paton's first head coaching hire.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine he will be willing to say, I messed up this badly that my first head coach isn't even getting a full season. Mm-hmm. And because then you'll have some out there that are questioning, well, what if he improved? So he gets that chance. He gets a full season to show improvement. We haven't seen any of it so far. And then afterwards, it's evaluated and determined then.
Yeah. Montana Altitude coming in here saying, new coach, new system now. Why waste time? Use the present team to get a new system ingrained for the future ASAP. Because you haven't even done the head coaching process, and the coaches that you'd be interested in bringing in, this we're already talking about Hackett like he's gone. Potentially the new coaches you would bring in their new guys and new system. So anything you're doing right now would very likely be changed. And also, if you are in a head coaching system or search this offseason, you don't want to be limited to the system you changed to midseason in a craptastic season that this has turned out to be. You know, how many, you don't want to limit your options there. Just kind of like you should probably, in hindsight, shouldn't have limited your options as much to, at least for fans and myself speaking, young offensive mind. Okay, well, now you're already, taking out half of the league. You need to just find the best guy, the best fit for the job, no matter where they come from. I mean, heck, can we hire somebody from like a college team in London that's a soccer team and do a little reverse Ted Lasso over here for the Broncos going for it? I don't know if anybody's seen that. We need a little Ted Lasso in here, although Hackett's kind of got that happy-go-lucky thing going right now, but it's ugly.
I mean, and it's not just the whole young offensive mind as to why they went and hired Hackett. I mean, a good reason of that is that he wasn't this rough around the edges, not necessarily not friendly, but he's a player's coach. He's friendly. He's going to do what the players want. And they didn't want somebody who's a little bit more rough like Vic Fangio was, because it did start to create some issues in the locker room, which is understandable. When things aren't working, that rough around the edges is going to cause that friction. And Dan Quinn, despite him being loved by his players, he's a little bit more of that rough and gruff guy, because it's like, he'll be nice and enjoy, but you still have to go out there and you still have to perform. He'll hold you accountable. Well, I wasn't a big fan of Dan Quinn as the head coach candidate, but that type of coach is exactly what Denver needs, in my opinion. And because Hackett keeps caving to the players a little bit, and we need somebody that will sit there and pull the reins, and not just about Russell Wilson, but about multiple other things about it, or with this team. We need somebody that can pull the reins and get things in check. And that is something that Dan Quinn can do. That's why we need a coach like him, which, hey, maybe he'll be the guy in this next offseason if Hackett gets fired, because Sean Payton will be taking over and changing out the staff in Dallas.
Yep. We got Lawrence Rivera coming in, always a supporter of the show, over on Facebook with stars, saying, "What's up, guys? Do any of our wide receivers have hands?" I think they have hands. sometimes inconsistent there from Hamler and Judy specifically. Sutton's had some bad drops this year too, although he makes some tougher catches from time to time. But they have hands. It's just everything looks bad right now. It's just like a negative feedback loop for the offense. So at least they cleaned up penalties this week, though, right, guys? So one thing, let's check that one off. Maybe next week they'll start executing a little better as well. D Porter coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Not much positive to talk about football-wise, so I'll just let you all have a great day. Thank you so much, D Porter. By the way, I think you guys might have missed $20 super chat from Coach Chris. Haven't missed it yet, just working our way down because we got a lot of people in here hanging out. So we see you, Coach Chris. We appreciate you. Oh, I was like, Eric, what the hell are you pulling up on the screen there? We got Paul Swallow in the house saying good morning from Spokane, Washington. Good to see you, Paul Swallow. Trying to work our way down, make sure we didn't miss anybody here. Dennis Chandler coming in, $10 super saying, would it make any sense to fire Hackett and promote Evero to head coach just to see if he could be the head coach going forward? I don't see Peyton hiring another head coach without head coaching experience next year. Your second point there makes it seem like the first point is not as likely, right? If you're curious to see what Evero has, but you're already looking for the experienced head coach next year, then you're just making a move to make a move, which at this point, I can't fault anybody for feeling that way or doing that. Honestly, it's been that bad. But if somebody really wanted to make a case for Evero, like I said earlier, I'd be interested because it does seem like the players respond to him, really respect him. He does seem like an extremely intelligent guy. Can it get worse? I mean, I don't know. I don't think it can. So I guess what would happen, what worst case scenario here, when Evero goes to head coach, the defense falls off a cliff because they're losing that scheme guy. And that's a possibility, I guess. But heck, I mean, I don't even care anymore about what pick the Seahawks are getting. You know, it's great, good for them. You probably got to figure something out here internally. And if Hackett's not the guy, then maybe you do look at Evero.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look at moving Evero just simply because you said the defense is at least performing well. And I wouldn't say they're great. They're a very good defense. And it's this whole argument of, I don't think they're top 5, but I think they're top 10 and close to that top 5. Which, hey, that's still a really good defense. And I wouldn't risk having that drop off because who knows if that's actually going to fix the offense. The offense is the issue here. Promoting your defensive coordinator to head coach, firing your head coach, all you're doing is potentially seeing this drop off on the defense, and I wouldn't risk it. If you're going to fire Hackett in the season, you look at promoting somebody on the offensive side of the ball and seeing if that can get the offense fixed. And just, it's just a situation of, again, I don't see it happening. I don't see Hackett being fired during the season. And if he does get fired after the end of the season, I would expect somebody with some head coaching experience to be the top candidate in Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, we got some annoying Seahawks fans. Spamming the chat? Now, I don't mind the Seahawks fans coming in here, but if you're just going to be trolling, then see you later. But we got Yo-Yo saying peace. Hopefully you're doing well, Yo-Yo. Sorry, Denver Broncos for life. Good to see you. We got Carrie saying, I'm going to watch some podcast. You always down in the Broncos like we know they're bad. Keep kicking them while they're down. How you can call yourself a Bronco fan? Honestly, more here to become a analyze the game rather than a fan podcast. If you're looking for a fan podcast, everything is awesome. There are other shows out there for you, but we're going to try to break down the game and talk about what's happening here. And, I honestly think we're probably the least negative of a lot of the shows on here. I don't want to, when Chad and Zach get going in the post game, fire and brimstone going on, they anger speweth forward much more than on here. We're just a little bit, this is the big sad podcast this morning. Mark Lendemone saying, good morning, Broncos country. What will be the excuses next year when we suck? I think they'll get better next season because why not? I'm going to try to be a little more positive here so we don't have you're right. It's a little bit too bummer right now, but hopefully next season you have an off season where you have a little bit more idea of what you need to do around Russell Wilson leading into the off season, so you can scout those kind of players and have some form of an identity of the body types, positional groups, et cetera, that you want to maximize, and also have a year of data analysis internally where it's like, okay, what really worked for Russell Wilson last year? Let's say it's under center 12 personnel, or 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. You're looking for another tight end to pair out there because you like what you see with Greg Dulcich, and then maybe a little bit stronger on the interior offensive line so you can run the football a little better. Then that should set you up to be a little bit better on the offensive side of the ball. But right now, they're just kind of coping coping ourselves into talking about that. I think. What do you think, Eric? What can the Broncos do this offseason or from this point forward to start preparing for a better 2020, 2023?
Go out and get about 50 offensive linemen. Like,
Okay.
because at that point, one of them's got to work. But seriously, it's make improvements on the offensive line, because the offensive line, it doesn't matter. Shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but that is something that you have to have no matter what. You have to have the players on the offensive line. And it's a thing of, as we're seeing this year, one guy isn't enough. I mean, we saw that with the Browns for so long. It was Thomas, and then they started building up the rest of the unit, and they ended up having one of the best offensive lines. Yeah, you still have to have the quarterback, but you need your guys on the offensive line. You got to improve the trenches. Dalton Reiser and Lloyd Cushenberry are absolutely terrible. I mean, Dalton Reiser, I mean, we can just call him Mr. Grounded because he's always on the ground. Lloyd Cushenberry is not any better. Just improve that offensive line and form an identity in the running game, because, as you mentioned earlier, you need the running game to help and have Wilson play complementary football to that. That is the way that you get him success, that you can get success from him. So you got to make those improvements on the offensive line, and it doesn't matter what scheme you're running, really. Obviously, depending on the run scheme, you want to find guys that can fit that, but just find players. Like, find players that can be, or look to find players that doesn't matter what scheme you're running, like that they can go out there and they can perform and they can execute, and they're just good.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Jeremy Shawn coming in saying Salah looks better year 2, so does Nick Sirianni. Even Mike McCarthy looks better. I know we want a scapegoat, but everything is going wrong this year. It's not just one guy. There are margins here. It's not binary. And with how incompetent the game situation has been with Nathaniel Hackett, out there saying the same thing week to week, it's just, I have no doubt that next season would be better offensively if you kept Hackett in here. But where's your starting point? And none of those teams last year were by far the worst offense in football with horrible game time decisions like we're seeing this year from the Denver Broncos. So yes, it would be better next year, but it's not like you have very much to, it would be hard to be worse, I guess. You not have much to build on right now. So again, you're getting the rest of the season. And like Eric said earlier, at that point, you're asking George Payton, okay, if you want to ride with Hackett again, that's on you. If you want to give him another season, year 2 will be better. That's fine. You're riding this ship though. And if he goes down, you're going down too. It's unfortunately that simple, in my opinion. But if you want to get a restart on that and give yourself another 2 years, probably, unfortunately, 3 coaches in 3 years looking on, and probably getting a veteran coach that's out there to come in to right the ship and, John Fox this situation, unfortunately, which doesn't have a high ceiling. But right now, I don't even give a hoot about the ceiling. It's the floor of this team that is killing me.
Yeah, and in this case, I mean, Robert Saleh, his offense is terrible. I mean, they're winning games because of their defense. I mean, they had a special teams, because they had a special teams touchdown, not against the Broncos, but against the Packers. Like, they've stepped up where you would expect them to, and the bottom of the Jets last year wasn't this low. Like, they're improving, and I would say they're playing better than their talent level suggests, which that's a great thing to see from the head coach. But it's not shocking that he is looking better. Same with Nick Sirianni. I mean, the issue there is you had Jalen Hurts that you were still trying to figure out who he is and still work with him at developing a coach. And you saw the flashes of what he could be last year. They're just now getting him to be consistent. And the defense took a tremendous step forward as well. So, yeah, there is improvements. But, again, it's a situation of the floor. And then Mike McCarthy, doesn't matter how the Cowboys look this year, I do think that he's just been a filler. And I think that Sean Payton's the guy they're waiting for. Obviously, we'll see. We'll see if that actually ends up being the case. But, I mean, they dealt with so many injuries last year, not trying to give them the injury excuse. Their defense looked good, and they had so many flashes on both sides of the ball that it's not surprising that they're taking a step forward. With Hackett trying to use with this defense of him, of these other guys and what they've done, we're not seeing those flashes on this Broncos offense. I mean, their big plays have literally been broken coverages and luck, and that's not sustainable, and that's not something that you can build off of to improve in year 2.
Yeah, especially in that first half of the Chargers game, I was kind of not rolling my eyes a little bit. Everyone's like, oh, Russell Wilson's back. I'm like, Chargers are freaking up left and right out here. This is going to get cleaned up. All you have to do is go into a more conservative shell, and those plays are gone. And Unfortunately, that's what happened last week. But we got Miguel coming in here saying, "Good morning, fellas. Let's say Hackett is one and done. Ever become a head coach? What options do you have at offensive coordinator?" I think Clint Kubiak's the only guy on the staff that has called plays. So it's probably, at least at the NFL level. I can't speak for college or even high school for some of those guys, but it's probably then Clint Kubiak being elevated to quarterback coach slash play caller slash offensive coordinator.
My issue with Clint Kubiak, it's nothing to do with Clint Kubiak whatsoever, really. Um, I don't see how you can turn to him to be your offensive coordinator when your starting quarterback just essentially is ignoring him for his own personal coach. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's not the quarterback coach for Russell Wilson, really. He's just the quarterback coach for Brett Rypien, because Russell Wilson has his own guy, which is another thing that I think George Payton and Nathaniel Hackett all should start working on cutting out. Because you have, from everything I've heard, is his personal coach and the coach and Clint Kubiak are trying to get him to do two different things, and he's not listening to the team coach. He's listening to his personal coach.
We're gonna have a whole offseason to this conversation, but like at some point, do they kick the personal coaches out of Dove Valley and whatnot? Does that further alienate him? Because like you got to be playing like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen to really have that level of power and play, in my opinion. And this is, bottom 10 quarterback play. You cannot, I don't care what you've done in the past as far as that point. You've done nothing here in Denver to date. So I don't know. Maybe I'm sounding pretty harsh and bitter here, but it's rough. And Jeremy coming in here saying the injuries are crazy. Russ has been a shell of himself. To completely blame Hackett isn't fair. The players need to be accountable as well.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I don't disagree at all. It's not all Hackett's fault. Unfortunately, somebody is going to probably be scapegoated for this season, and Hackett has not done well, even if you give him the excuses of all these things around him. He has been poor, so it's not fully his fault, without a doubt. But it's easier to fix one person than an entire unit, and right now, probably the head coach is where it falls.
And not only that is, at least with me, I've been trying to be fair, I guess would be the way to put it, and put the blame everywhere. I've talked a lot about Russell Wilson and his issues with it, the offensive line. I mean, one of the mornings last week, Scott had to tell me, he's like, we're going to try to stop bagging on the offensive line now for a little bit. So it is an issue of everything. But the thing is, for me, is who are you tied to more? The franchise quarterback you traded all this stuff for and handed $245 million to, or the rookie head coach? Like, which one are you tied to more? So scapegoating Hackett, it's not fair to completely say the blame's all on him, because it isn't. But he is the one that is easier to move on from and replace than it is your quarterback. And he's easier to try and find an improvement at the coaching position than it is to completely essentially rebuild your offensive line, or rebuilding your receiver unit outside of Sutton, or your tight end room outside of Dulcich, or your running back room, because quite frankly, there's a concern that Pookie Williams won't be ready to go by the season start next year because of the injury he had, that it might be week 6, week 7 next year before we get him. So you got to find an improvement there, and somebody who can better your running back unit until he gets back. It's just easier to look at the head coach and get a replacement there and hope for something better than it is every other issue with this team.
100%. And I'm just looking at the stats of this game. How in the horrible hell did the Broncos drop back Brett Rypien with 47 times?
Yeah.
47 times with your undrafted free agent backup quarterback who was debatably not even going to make a 53-man roster, and you drop back 47 times with the offensive line struggling as much as it's done. You drop back 47 times. I mean, this is another thing. We're talking about the offensive line, or the head coach, excuse me. What kind of game plan is that? Like, who is deciding you need to protect the quarterback and yourself in that situation? I don't even want to see Russell Wilson drop back 35 times. Just have Brett Rypien 47 dropbacks in a game that was that close. What the heck are we doing? I mean, yeah, we let it rip, Nick. Yeah, we did. And the Broncos are not running very well either. So before we wrap it on up and get on out of here, Eric, in my opinion, just overall team building going forward, I think the Broncos need to lean, and this is me coming full circle and kind of like, I guess I'll just eat crow on this one, being wrong before, but I think they need to lean really hard into the offensive line going forward, kind of like what the Lions have done over the last few seasons. The offensive lines, I know they only put up 6 points last week, but I mean, Jared Goff's limited quarterback. They have some injuries there. But I think if you pour some resources into the offensive line. Maybe you're going to limit some explosives on the outside. Maybe your defense takes a little bit of a step back. But I think that outside of the quarterback position can help raise the floor of the entire unit and give you the ability to go either way, game to game, compared to what the Broncos have been doing so far. So leaning hard on the offensive line, maybe paying a big contract to somebody, right tackle or an interior offensive lineman, bringing them in and starting building around that unit as the basis, because pretty much the Broncos have done everything but that on the offensive side so far, trying to figure it out. And we're stuck with Russell Wilson. The quarterback is not a change you can make. Probably, I think, just leaning really hard into the OL, becoming more of a run game oriented team, and hopefully that bears fruit in the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you got to invest on the offensive line. And I don't think anybody expect the regression that we saw or we're seeing, even with the whole change at the offensive line coach, which no matter what, Butch Berry can't make it to year 2, period. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's basically had the same players on the offensive line as Munchak had last year, dealing with injuries as well, and the unit's worse. And what's frustrating with that is you get rid of Munchak because he doesn't really care to coach the outside zone. Not saying he can't, and then you see him go to Minnesota and help install their outside zone scheme. And then in Denver, you're running predominantly inside zone, which is something that Munchak can do quite well. Like, it's just a head scratcher there, and you got to invest on the offensive line, not just with the players. You got to improve your offensive line coach as well. I can't remember which coach it was, but there was a head coach that said, if you're going to have 2 bad players on your offensive line, you have to have 3 great players on your offensive line. And then in the same statement, he made the comment that you can't have your bad players next to each other. Well, Denver doesn't have 3 great players on their offensive line. They have 2 of their 2 worst offensive linemen are playing next to each other, which is just such a clear weakness that teams are able to exploit it. So go and improve your center position. Go and find a legit option at right tackle, and stop with the signing of guys are dealing with injuries and expect them to pan out. They knew about Tom Compton's back injury when they signed him, which is part of the reason why he only got a 1-year deal. They knew about Billy Turner's issues with his knee when they signed him, which again is part of why he got the 1-year deal. And then they bet on Calvin Anderson showing development. And we make the comment about the pass protection in the game. It got significantly worse when Anderson took the field. Significantly worse.
Yeah, I don't care that he interacts with fans or does the shish emoji. He's bad. He's just not a good player. So sorry, guys. But yeah, I think that's going to be my strategy going forward. I think just really pour resources into the offensive line going forward. You're not going to have a top 10 pick, unfortunately, but luckily for the Broncos, in order to improve the offensive line, it's not going to take, a $20 million a year contract, because paying a center and guard, 2 of the lowest paid positions in football on average for the top guys, is you're going to be able to do that. The question is, are you going to get stuck with a Graham Glasgow type of guy where, he was paid a top guard contract and ended up being a below average player before the injury, below average after that? I don't know, but obviously Reisner was free agent at the end of the year. Cushenberry, Broncos looked over and over again for center upgrades in the draft. Didn't happen, unfortunately. Cam Jurgens went earlier than they had hoped, I'm guessing, and also probably Cole Strange. I think there was some Cole Strange love as well, and him going in the first, somewhat surprising, and he's been playing good football over there in New England. So I think that's probably the direction to go with the limited resources you have and just how this team is built right now. Getting back to basics, winning in the trenches a little bit better, more on the offensive side of the ball, and then building out around that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And before we get out of here, there's one comment I want to make. Going to the defensive side of the ball, can we stop talking about Patrick Surtain being a physical corner? Because whenever it comes to run defense or tackling, he looks about as physical as my daughter does. I mean, that one play he had yesterday, that was that wide receiver screen that he comes up and he just completely whips it. Like, that was bad. I mean, there was a play against the Colts. Matt Ryan fumbled it. Ball is laying right in front of Patrick Surtain. Instead of diving for it, he pulls up. And it's just a consistent issue with it. Sure, he plays physical in coverage, but if you're going to be a physical corner, you got to be physical in all phases for it. And that's one thing that really bothers me with this defense, is that it's not just him either. There's multiple other guys that are missing tackles. And Alex Singleton, I mean, he was all hyped up for how much tackles he had for the last 2 seasons. and he's just consistently missing tackles. Justin Simmons is missing tackles. As good as Evero is, like, you got to sit here and figure out what's going on with the tackling issues and just be a more physical unit consistently against the run. I have no qualms about the physicality on the defensive line or edges.
Yeah. Well, guys, hopefully this therapy was better for you guys, and hopefully things get a little bit better here going forward. You guys will once again have the Huddle Up guys, Zach and Chad, Fire and Brimstone, I'm sure, tonight coming from the Huddle Up podcast. So hopefully it gets a little bit better here for the Broncos going forward. And we're going to be here no matter what. Maybe the Broncos offense doesn't show up week to week, but we show up every day. So appreciate you guys and you guys showing up every day as well. 271 people in the chat. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit the thumbs up and on Facebook and subscribe on the way out. And make sure you're following Eric and I. Follow Eric on Twitter at Erick Trickel. Follow myself at Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you're joining our Facebook community at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And as the ticker says underneath, please subscribe, like, and share on YouTube. Click that bell notification. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate the heck out of you for joining us today. Thanks to Eric for joining. Scott is busy in New Orleans. I'm sure it's sports related down there for his kids. So we'll have Scott and I again tomorrow morning. But Eric waking up even earlier than me. I'm up at 6:30 for this show, or not up at 6:30. We are at 6:30 for the show. Eric's at 5:30. So Eric may be slumbering back to bed. What's up for you for the rest of the morning here?
I'm going to get working on my grades and everything, and then going and taking a nap.
Oh, man. Well, I got a solution for you to fall asleep immediately. Just start on with a nice little course of the Iowa Hawkeyes offense and then kick over to the Denver Broncos offense. We appreciate you guys. Everyone have a good one. Continue to choose passion and kindness. Love y'all. Go Broncos.